to be our 13th year. We have people from 35 countries and around the U.S. that descend on New Orleans to learn about their craft that week.
Thank you. Tess?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tess Monahan. I'm the general manager of Good Eggs in New Orleans. So Good Eggs is basically the best of online grocery delivery meets the farmer's market. So we're in 4 cities now. Can't take credit for all of Good Eggs, but I was the founder of the New Orleans operations. And so basically we bring the best of locally produced goods and make them available for you to purchase online, and we'll deliver them to your door. So various pastries and chocolates and cakes from Sucre. You can buy those alongside your syrups from Emily with Locally Preserved, who's in the audience, and milk and dairy and produce and meat and seafood, Gulf seafood, kind of all the best the region has to offer, and we'll bring it to you.
Great, thank you. Joel?
Hi, Joel Dondas, founder, CEO of Sucre. I guess your dreams can come true. I started as a dishwasher when I was 10. And then made my way into the food side. That's where I really wanted to be. Started my first company in 1993 with $5,000 in a car. We're really 5 companies today, north of 350 employees, 50 open positions right now. And I've never been happier that I could do what I'm doing and get to the point of really discovering consumption and watching people consume and be joyed by that.
Thank you very much. Let's ask each panelist to give us a sense of the innovation that they are most proud of with their respective organizations, or if they have more than one, that's equally fine. Anne, let's start with you.
Well, I'm particularly proud that I think, honestly, we created the category of what we do. I mean, like I said, our event will be 13 years old in 2015. Most people thought we were absolutely crazy when we started this. And if you look at now around the world, I mean, I can't even count. There's probably 150 cocktail weeks. They're all based on Tales of the Cocktail. Once or twice a week I get an email. I mean, there's one in Decatur, Georgia, coming up next year. There's one in Baltimore, and they're all like, oh, we went to Tales of the Cocktail. Now, it's not exactly like Tales of the Cocktail. Most of these are consumer for-profit events, but I think that what we're really proud of is that we were able to, put a focus on New Orleans and dining and drinking history that hadn't been there before. I mean, we all knew you came to New Orleans to eat and drink, but we didn't really know anything historically about that. What I think is interesting about innovation is that you don't always realize it's happening while you're doing it. I mean, at the time, I had just started a walking tour of New Orleans bars and restaurants that a year later evolved into the first Tales of the Cocktail with 50 people behind the carousel bar. And now, we've had a $70 million economic impact since 2008. We had 242 events last year. So I think that's what's interesting, is you don't always realize it's happening while you're in the middle of it. But now, again, I think I'm, proud to say that we, started this entire category of educating people about drinking and kind of elevating what we all drink.
Thank you. Tess?
Yeah, so when Good Eggs started, before I joined the company, one of the first activities that the founders did was spend 7 months just going around and researching what small food businesses needed to grow and succeed. Before we knew what Good Eggs was going to do, what the company's function would be, the company started with a mission, which was to grow and sustain local food systems worldwide. So the founders, who one had come from Google, one had come from Carbon 5, they were like, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to use technology and we want to grow and sustain local food systems worldwide. But they didn't know what service or product they would create. So they spent 7 or 8 months just going around and talking to bakers and farmers and people raising livestock, people making small organic local baby food businesses. They talked some to consumers, but the producers were really our original core constituency. So what I think is really cool is that we developed a product based on the need of a specific community. And while we've grown and evolved and changed, and we've certainly had to make concessions as any startup does as it grows to be, try to become a functional business, the thing I'm most proud of is that we're a company that's entirely built around the needs of small-scale producers. The small producers, whether it's a farmer or a dairy or a prepared food business, they often, there's kind of this gap where you're maybe a little too big to just sell at the farmer's market or just be selling on some very small scale, but you're not big enough to start selling to grocery stores. And we're able to work with businesses at that intermediate stage. And like Robbie mentioned in his opening speech, provide them with the proof of concept they need to help continue to grow bigger. And we don't just we work with businesses of all sizes. Sucre is certainly not a tiny mom and pop operation these days, and they sell good eggs. But I'm proud of the fact that we're able to support and partner with businesses of all sizes.
Joel?
So, I guess first, Sucre was really a dream. My 6th grade science project was a souffle, so I always loved this stuff. And there's nothing that can be more rewarding than watching something come to life that you can make a living from. As my first chef said, Joel, a real chef can make a living in his craft. He also said something else that was very important to me. He says it's not about a product that you buy, it's about what you do. And he said, with that product, he said, so how many different dishes can you cook with this fish? It's not how many times can you use the fillet, the most prime piece of the fish. He said, look at the rest of the fish. And he said, that's how a chef or an innovator is going to be successful and make money. On the Sucre side, and something I'm very proud of is that we have products shipping coast to coast in the U.S., and we just had our first pallets of product shipped to China. Something else very important that we're trying to figure out how to, I guess, make visual or quantify for us really is, I call it a lean footprint, and it involves utilization. So if we're making cake and we have scraps, what do we do with those scraps? How much goes in this trash can? And this came from, I think, in those earlier days of cooking, my chef would walk around the kitchen and he would come over to my trash can and he would look and see what's in there, and he would take things out of it and he'd put them on the table and he'd say, what are you doing? And he'd say, how can you have this and make money? And so it's boiled down to in our operation. We have something that we sell in our stores that many people really love, and it's made with the scraps of chocolate cake. So we're trying to get down to that. I don't think it's going to be zero, but as high as utilization as possible, and as low on the waste factor as we possibly can. And we've done an amazing job. My partner Tara Hanna is a brilliant chef and scientist, so I'm very proud of these things.
Very good. Each one of you, take us into your own personal innovation process, both, as I said, your personal side, but also with your team. All of you work with team members. How do you challenge your team? Do you go off and do a charrette? Is this an ongoing thing? Do you do an annual retreat of some sort? Do you find it happening each and every day and you keep pushing? So, Ann, start with you. Obviously, you created something out of whole cloth. I mean, you put it together. But what has happened since?
The main thing with us is that, one, I've never been a professional bartender or, server or chef or anything like that. I mean, I worked at Wendy's in high school and college, So I think from my standpoint, one, it's like I've taken a lot of educational courses and programs to have more empathy with the bartenders and people that attend our event. But my husband has a line that says it's the industry's event, we just curate it. So honestly, our thing is that we're constantly talking to those people. I mean, I travel around, I take the team with us, we have what I call round tables. We meet with people that, have major complaints and people that love us both. Because I figure if somebody has a complaint, somebody else is probably thinking it as well. But constantly trying to push ourselves and deliver what our audience wants. And I think that that's made us successful because from the very beginning, we never said, we're having a, wine event, so it must include vintner dinners, it must include this, it must include that. We've just curated it all along the way. So there's been things that we've started, that we've dropped, there's been things that we've added. We're constantly tweaking. I have to say now, I think the challenge is, it's more difficult to be at the top and stay at the top. So I find myself pushing the team much more. And then I think the other thing is just bringing the attendees into it. I mean, this year we're beta testing RFID, we're doing a lot more with technology, and from my standpoint, it's like we should be first at all those things. But the fact that we're beta testing it with a few thousand people, we let them know that they become a part of the success. So they want to help us then make that successful. So I look for innovation from all, sources. But again, I think it's something that, in our organization, again, I'm constantly, pushing. I mean, we're getting ready to announce a few other new things that we'll be doing. But, addition to Tales to Cocktail, we have Tales on Tour, where we do global events throughout the year. We started a membership program last year called Tales 365 that gives people access to our educational content that even aren't at the event. So I think, it's about constantly, evolving and offering, your content in different ways to people. So again, I think in our case, it's just, again, I'm probably the one constantly nudging them, despite being the oldest in the office. But, I think that's what we have to do to be successful.
Thank you. Tess?
So I started with Good Eggs. It's going to be 2 years next week. When we started, we were in a 200, no, it was even maybe 200 square foot little office in the Marigny. But so we were just, it was just me and one other person at that point, trying to create Good Eggs in New Orleans and seeing what that would look like. But at the same time, we were backed by a technology organization, a product organization with venture funding out of San Francisco. So in a lot of ways, we've had kind of the best of both worlds. We've had the fun of creating something from scratch, and also the support of, we don't have to hire the engineers because we have an engineering team that supports all the Good Eggs hubs around the country. So the innovation that we've been doing here has been kind of a combination of what we discover delivering groceries to our customers every day, and then we report back to the central team in San Francisco and we say, it would really help us if we had, if we could tweak the software, so instead of printing the labels for the products this way, instead, the product name was on top and the customer's name was on the bottom, whatever the kind of tweaks that would help us operationally here. We then go back and kind of communicate our feedback from what's happening on the ground to the engineering and design teams in San Francisco, and based on feedback from New Orleans and also the 3 other markets where we're operating, they're building tools to support the operations as they're actually playing out on the ground in these different cities. So it's been a great process. I'd never worked with a product organization before. I've learned a lot about what engineers can and can't do quickly. There's some changes that we say, this is a real pain in the butt for us, and our team would be so much more efficient if, instead of this information printing on 2 different pieces of paper, it all printed on 1 piece of paper. Sometimes it's a really easy request, and they're like, oh sure, and the next time we go to print something, it's how we want it to look. Sometimes it's like, nope, we got to put that in the engineering queue. That'll take 2 months. I'm like, okay, we'll try it out. But so on one hand, we have this interplay between what's happening locally and what's happening with the Good Eggs Hub in our central office. But on the other, locally, one thing that we have done since the beginning is incorporated feedback from everyone on the team. Now we're at about 40 staff members here in New Orleans, and we make sure we have retrospectives and brainstorms and ongoing weekly meetings to capture feedback from throughout the organization. I do delivery routes once every couple of weeks to make sure I still know what's going on out on the road and how our delivery drivers' experience is. But we want to know from the delivery drivers, what's it like delivering groceries? Is there one part of how we have a delivery app where they're navigating from customer to customer on the phone. What's that experience like? We need to know from them. They're our eyes and ears on the road. So getting feedback consistently throughout the organization and taking that feedback seriously is one of our major processes.
Thank you. Joel?
Okay, so innovation for me, and I think for Sucre, it started with cash flowing your company. You have a dream, you'd like to see it come true. It has to be viable. To be viable, it has to make sense to its consumer, and then it has to be able to pay its bills. So that's always been something that's driven me, because I've started with little, and when cash flow is tight, if you can't keep the lights on, your innovation isn't going to do much good. A client one day asked, when we were in a store, he said, we'd like a piece of candy by the register. And he said, what about this little chocolate bar or something like that? And my partner and I were speaking with him, and I said, would you get that from this person, or this person, or this person? And he said, well, what about a macaroon? I said, well, it's too fragile in its current state. And but I said, let's think about that. So Tarek and I left, and it took me first to, and I'm a very visual person. I think I'm 99% structural visual or something like that. And so when I'm thinking of ideation, it's all in pictures in my mind. And so the first thing that came to mind was the old-fashioned gumball machine, the kind of machine that had this little plastic bubble with it that had something in it at the grocery store. And he said, I wanted to sit right there at the register, and I was thinking about the macaroon, and I was thinking, if that macaroon sat in that bubble, then its containment would protect it, basically. And so it started there, and it amounted to what's on the back table over here, in a 3-year process and testing, and they were so gracious and their assistance to the product known as MacBubble. In a flow wrapper. I don't know how we would have ever done it without Sucre and the rest of infrastructure paying the bills along the way, because it's a very expensive process. So that's kind of how that began, and its product sitting on the table over there. Now, about my own ideation process, I made a cue card, and you might not be able to read the whole thing, but from where you are. But and as the question is asked, innovation. What is innovation? It's an act or process of making something new, and so it's typically a need, right? And so then when I think about the need, and I'm quickly, and maybe there are 10 channels going across in my mind, but there's viability. It's can I make it? How is the market going to react? So I come here to need, and then I go to viable value proposition. This is my own process. I then think about sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So when I think about our candy bar, or like our chocolate bars have a specific weight to the box, to the cardstock that the box is made from, and they have a specific printing, and we want people to see the bar, the real product, so there's a cutout. And so there were certain things that came into play along the way that were important to me. Then there is who and why, and I call these the truths. Now, this is related to what's in the adaptive action world, human systems dynamics. That means that we all have a certain way that we want to consume something. And you know, prolific brands, they reach their ultimate HSD by being prolific across a whole country or the world. Let's just say Apple, right? They are phenomenally successful with HSD. So you have to then ask these questions. Of the truths, there's objective, subjective, normative, and complex. The importance here is that from objective being evident, subjective being individual opinion, normative being of group opinion, or complex, a percentage of all. You have to ask these questions because they then can help you understand who's going to consume your product, why they're going to consume your product, why not, and get down to the truths of maybe why something could be successful, why it might be marginally successful, how it's going to end up playing out potentially. So that's the sum of my ideation process. And then there's the rest of our team. By the way, we brainstorm in operation constantly, and it's the fun of what we do.
Great. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the Hall of Fame for Innovation and ask each of you, who would you like to see, or who do you look forward to talking to in that Hall of Innovation? Who's an innovator that you look up to, someone who has really moved the needle, and you think, that's what I'd like to be one day? Is there an individual person or organization? Anna?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that I look to as innovators. This one, unfortunately, I can't talk to, which would be Steve Jobs. I just think the man is amazing. I mean, I read everything about him I can. What I like about Steve Jobs is he turned entire industries on their head. I mean, first the phone industry, then the music industry. Unfortunately, he passed away before he was going to do that same thing with television, but kept it simple at the same time. The other thing I really like about him, and I hope to do this with Tales of Cocktail because I want it to be my gift to the city, is he was very focused on creating something lasting. And I think that's really important because, you know, innovation can be quick and have a spike and then, you know, peter out. So it's like, how do you be innovative, stay innovative, and then create something lasting? And that was a real goal of his. And, you know, I want to make Tales of the Cocktail something that can go on long after, you know, I'm not around anymore. But I would say, you know, he's, you know, definitely at the top of my list because I just think when it came to innovation, and despite the fact that a lot of people say he wasn't that pleasant, you know, he actually did have a nice side and he got a lot done.
Good. Yes.
I think for me, on the food and farming side, I'm so inspired by the folks who have done so much to raise the general consumer awareness, general public awareness about the food issues we face. So, you know, people like Robbie mentioned, Wendell Berry, people like, you know, Joel Salatin, who's a really revolutionary farmer, and then people, you know, in the last 10 years, like Michael Pollan. Those writers did not necessarily invent the concepts that they've popularized, but they are the people who've done the most, I think, to bring an awareness of what we need to be thinking about when it comes to food as a society, to, you know, to really make that information accessible to people and help people understand that, like, this, you know, the food industry, the food system is one of the major areas that we need to be paying attention to in the 21st century. And then also, you know, less from an innovation side, but from a mentorship side, the person I report to at Good Eggs is our VP of operations, and he was previously, at one point, he was the head of operations at Netflix. And so I'm learning so much about the value of the relationship. Where do you find the balance between innovation and not reinventing the wheel? Because when we started Good Eggs, we wanted to totally reinvent the wheel, like take everything about the food system and throw it on its head, which is fun. But when we hired Andy last fall, it was actually to temper this idea of reinventing everything with this deep operational knowledge, right? There's certain things that people have figured out about operations businesses, about logistics businesses, because at the end of the day, we have this idealistic, you know, revolutionize the food system's mission, but at the end of the day, we're delivering groceries, right? Like, we have to get the food from the producer to the customer. And while we are innovating by using technology to create, you know, proprietary systems that allow us to do that in different ways than other companies, and that is our major intellectual property, at the same time, we realized we had so much to learn from someone who had, you know, a couple of decades of logistics experience. So that's where I am right now, is kind of balancing where do I look to innovators and where do I look to people who really know what they're doing in a certain domain.
Makes sense. Joel.
Gosh, there have been so many in my career. The first was James Beard. That was my first cookbook. But as of late, and I'm a voracious reader. I read 3 papers a day, pretty much. And the way it's been working for me lately is I look at market sentiment, and it's agnostic for an industry, or whether it's from politics to business, or it's directly focused at food. I've been spending a lot of time, a level up or two, just reading to listen to where people are gravitating and moving to along the adaptive action HSD. So it's more, because as you know, when something is adopted, then that means that naturally it's become valuable, or it's been able to penetrate and become useful for someone. And so I'm reading about innovators, and I'm trying to understand across the platforms how those things happen. And so I couldn't say that I necessarily have one, but I have many, and I'm trying to just absorb how we're moving as a society.
Very good. Joel, let's start with you on this one. Innovations in the food and beverage space right now, what are some of the most exciting things that you're seeing?
Well, hands down for me, I would say I call it truth in ingredients. It's really transparency. I think what we are living in is a time where the conglomerate is being pushed aside, where price is certainly important, but it's not the number one heavy. And because the conglomerates are being pushed over to the side, to have to recognize what we think is authentic or true or good for us, it's allowing the innovators, and as you know, an innovator, and let's call it a CPG, it's costly. It's not easy, and the conglomerates, they've filled the aisles for years and have been the muscle. And they are what has held the innovators back. And so as the public has risen to the top to say, no, we want to see these new things, and it needs to be true, and we want to know what's in it. Like I was speaking with a gentleman earlier, and he picked up a Mac bubble, and the first thing he did is he went to the other side and he looked at the ingredients. Okay? And so they've recognized this, and recognizing this, they've allowed the innovators and those true products to come up and rise to the top and be in front of us. And I don't know, it gives me goosebumps.
You can tell. Tess.
Yeah, the increased customer awareness of what goes into their food was definitely the first thing I was going to say as well. Something that doesn't excite me but speaks to the power of this trend is I've read a couple articles recently about major brands creating fake craft brands, like McDonald's opening a cafe that isn't at all McDonald's branded but sells, artisanal hamburgers and fries. I think the conglomerates are scared, and I think that craft washing is going to be the next greenwashing. People are starting to realize that, okay, natural on this bag of potato chips doesn't mean anything. Soon people aren't just going to be turning bags over to look at the ingredients. They're also going to be looking for signs of, well, is this really, is this a real independent? They say millennials are so into authenticity, right? Like, is this really an authentic product that I'm holding, or is it a conglomerate pretending that they are, pretending that it's a, the kind of brand that would be authentic? The other thing I'm really excited about is, as part of the Farm Bill that passed last year, there's a provision for online acceptance of SNAP, of food assistance benefits. One of the things that has been a real point of frustration for Good Eggs is, so far we haven't been able to accept any food benefits, and that is because there is not currently, if you have EBT, you're using food benefits, there's no way to, you go to a grocery store, instead of paying with a credit card, you can pay with, here in Louisiana, it's Louisiana Purchase Card. There's no way to use those funds online right now, which has made it hard for us to serve people of all different income levels. And so this is hopefully the year. Good Eggs just got approved as a SNAP retailer, but we don't yet have, which is great, but we don't actually have any way right now for customers to use their benefits to pay us. So we're going to work with the USDA, hopefully pilot online acceptance of food assistance benefits, which would be so huge.
Great, congratulations on that. Dan?
Personally, I'm excited about menu labeling. I mean, I enjoyed